Hey YouTube. So my locals did a case tournament for Maze of Memories, and for this event I decided to take Naturia Runick. If you've watched my previous video, or one of my previous videos, you would have seen that at the start of the format there was a case tournament to which I took Naturia Sprite, or not Naturia Sprite, Sprite Runick. I actually considered this deck as well for that event. The reason I landed on Sprite rather than Naturia was, one, it was the very beginning of the format, so I didn't have I didn't have much time to prepare, and I had a whole lot of preparing to do, a whole bunch of new decks to prepare for, and I'd actually played Sprite Runick in the past, but I had never played Naturia Runick. But number two, more importantly, was I decided that Sprite was the better pick because I thought that it had a much stronger going second, particularly into Kaijus, dealing with the like Macrocosmos on legs, the Rise Heart. This deck seemed like a very grave centric deck, especially the way I'd seen it at the time with the Ishizu cards. But after seeing, knowing what I know now, seeing Pack's profile from YCS Vegas, and just thinking about the deck more, I realized that the deck is still insane going second. Like, Mole Cricket is a crazy card, and just going first, I think it's infinitely stronger than Runick Sprite, just because of this guy right here, Naturia Beast. Naturia Beast is an FTK against most of the format. So yeah, I definitely think this deck is the strongest deck going first of the format. And then going second, it's actually like pretty good. Even into Kaijus, which I definitely thought was the deck to beat for the event. But I'll get into that a bit more later. I've already spoken enough for this intro, so without further ado, into the deck. We got the average Runick lineup, I'd say. We got the 16 Runick cards, and then 2 Fountain. I think 15 is too few. Generally, I try to go for 17, but sometimes that can feel a bit cloggy, so I kind of ended up landing on 16 after a bunch of testing with Sprite. I could be convinced to go to 17, though. I do think 15 is too few. So yeah, three each of all the really good ones. And then the one Dispelling. I was running, instead of Dispelling, I was running the one Smiting Storm before for the sake of deck out, but with more practicing, like more testing, I found that like Dispelling is an actual useful effect that comes up, and like deck out like probably won't happen, and even if it does end up coming up, you generally don't need Smiting Storm to make it happen. Like, it'll just happen anyway. So Dispelling did seem like the better pick. Then we have the full Naturia lineup, 3 of each. 3 Blessing instead of 2 because we don't run any of the Ishizu cards. I don't think the Ishizu cards are worth it. I decided that running NonEngine would be better than running the Ishizu cards. It did end up being that the only games I lost, though, were because I drew too much NonEngine. I think I got like a little bit unlucky with that, because those games where I drew the NonEngine like went on for like a couple turns. NonEngine tends to do that, and even then, like, I wasn't drawing into engine after those additional draws. So I do think I got pretty unlucky, but in hindsight, I'll go into this a bit more later, but in hindsight, rather than the Ishizu cards, I think the additional engine I should have ran was Foolish Burial Goods, and then possibly Metal Flows Fusion. For my NonEngine, I chose to run the 3 Gamma and Driver, 3 Ash, and then 3 Gamma Seal. So obviously the main deck, you want to be able to cover a wide variety of options. These cards will never be dead in any matchup. They'll always do something. I think Ash is mandatory this format because it's one of the few hand traps, or like the few go second cards you can run in your deck that hit Labyrinth, and also like it casts a wide net. Like Ash is the generically good card, right? But also Branded is an extremely popular deck this format, and Ash is, I don't have to tell you how crazy Ash is there. So yeah, I think 3 Ash is kind of mandatory. If you're running any amount of hand traps, you run Ash. Then we got the 3 Gamma. The reason for this is I wanted something that could stop Kashtira. Again, like Kashtira I thought was the deck to beat. It's consistently the most represented deck at every single big event. I think Gamma like will always have a big impact against Kashtira, whether they're going for a Rise Heart Pass or whether they're going to attempt to do a full zone lock. Gamma's gonna really hurt them. So if they go for a Rise Heart Pass, and also Gamma's crazy as the 6th card, and especially in this deck. So if you draw it as the 6th card, or if like you just see based on their line that they're going a Rise Heart Pass, you save it for your turn. You activate literally any spell card, and like we're playing Runick, there's a bunch of them. This will mandatory trigger a Rise Heart, and then you activate Gamma. So Gamma will negate and destroy their Rise Heart, which they went a Rise Heart Pass. It's their only monster. Now their Preparations is dead, and so is their, like if they even had it, and their Birth is dead, which like Birth is crazy against this deck, so that's very important. So Gamma like single-handedly answered their entire board. But also, you'll have, now that since it's your turn, you're going to have Gamma and Driver on board. And Gamma and Driver, if you use any Runick spell to summon Hugin, Gamma, Driver, and Hugin are Barone. So yeah, like the one Runick spell and the Gamma out of their whole board, and now you're going to get a free Barone. So you can see the strength of that. And then the Kaijus, again, another card that is just generically useful. It'll always do something, pretty low impact sometimes, but it'll have some impact. So like generally some impact coupled with your crazy Naturia cards and your really flexible Runick cards, you're going to be able to play through boards usually. And Kaijus are just another one of those cards where like I think if you're countering Kashtira, you need to be, especially in a deck where you have so few non-engine slots, you need the cards to be able to hit them whether they go for the zone lock or they go for a Rise Heart Pass. And Kaijus are crazy in both scenarios. Then for the side deck, Triple Evenly. I think this card is crazy. There's a reason I was maining it in my other deck profiles. It's just a blowout card this format. Very few decks actually have negates for it. And even the ones that do, like you couple it with a Freezing Curses or like even sometimes a Flashing Fire or something, and you just out their whole board. Then Double Chaos Hunter and Contact Sea. These are both for Kashtira. Contact Sea has a little bit of overlap with Branded, but based on the siding patterns, this was for Kashtira. And again, I wanted a card that did something, whether they went a Rise Heart Pass or whether they did the full board. This was actually supposed to be 3 Chaos Hunter, but I couldn't find my 3rd copy in time. I was figuring out my exact ratios on the morning of the event, so yeah, it was 2 Chaos Hunter and Contact Sea. You use these at the same time. If they're going for the full zone lock, you wait until they already have both Shangri Era and Rise Heart on board, whichever one they summon second, you drop these cards then. And then it basically like shuts off their turn. Because they're going to have to banish to continue extending. Like if you summon Chaos Hunter too early, they're going to just big eye it. You're down 2 cards, you've given them a free level 7 body, it's terrible. So you need to make sure that they're not going to be able to keep summoning without banishing. So essentially they're not going to be able to keep summoning after you drop Chaos Hunter. And then if they're going a Rise Heart Pass, like you just drop it on the Rise Heart, But like again, it's crucial to just wait until they can no longer extend, because you definitely don't want them to be able to big eye this. The discard isn't really a downside in this deck, I found, or like in theory. You could pitch the driver if you draw it. You can pitch Sacred Tree, and like even just pitching a Runick spell or an extra Naturia or something is pretty good, because like they come out of the grave, and yeah, it doesn't really matter. Like you're shutting off everything they have with, if they're going a Rise Heart Pass, or you're blocking the zone lock, you're just shutting them out of the game when you drop Chaos Hunter. So that was the theory for that. Similar thing with Contexy. And then we got Triple Bell because we need something for Labyrinth, because you need to side out the... So you're bringing in Evenly Matched and Bell against Labyrinth, and you're taking out the Kaijus, and I don't remember the exact other cards I was taking out, but yeah, I had worked out the siding ratios, and you need something for Labyrinth. Bell also has the overlap with being extremely good against Branded. I think Bestials are a bit better against Branded, but I just wanted something that hits both of them, and yeah, this card hits both those really strong threats very hard. Then we got triple D barrier just as going first cards. And then these last 3 slots, I'd worked out all of my siding ratios, and I had these 12 slots figured out. And then I had 3 free spots. And I was thinking like I could put more cards for specific matchups in. I could put like general cards in there, like Droll or Nib or something. But what I ended up doing was having these time cards, because it's a Runick deck, and sometimes sometimes you have to play really slow, grindy games with it, and you won't have a battle phase to change life points, so you need these time cards. Like, granted, you do have Scarlight and the extra, but maybe you won't get to access it, and maybe these cards will make a difference. That was 100% the wrong choice throughout the whole event. I did sometimes go into time, but these cards never mattered. Scarlight did, and these 3 slots, 100% these 3 slots, should have been either some of these tech cards, like the Kaijus, for example, going into the side, and then Metal Flows Fusion and Foolish Goods going into the main. Or the main should have stayed the same, and then these should have just been an extra. I haven't worked out exactly what I would do, but 100% it should have been this. It should have been these cards somewhere in the list, because you should win 100% of the time going first. If you get into your engines, you almost always win. You should be very, very favored in that scenario. The games I lost were where I went first, and I just had too much non-engine. So these cards definitely solve that problem, and I think they should be somewhere in the list. The extra deck, I think, is like very, very settled for Naturia Runick. It's, I think, 14 out of 15 cards are like mandatory, and these are the first 14 in here. So it's double Hugin, double Gary, Nat Beast, Barone, Chang Ying, Barkion, Charge Warrior, Coral Dragon, Scarlight, Exciton Knight, Baguska, Donner, and then the 15th spot is the flex spot. I decided to go Lambda. I already spoke about how crazy Gamma is, so that's why I decided to main it. And I think if you're maining Gamma, you might as well run Lambda. That definitely did come up for me, and I'm happy I decided to run Lambda. Arguably, the other flex spots are... like, the synchros are all, like, set, except for maybe Chang Ying. I've never made Chang Ying, but in theory it just seems so strong. But in practice, it's never come up that I've wanted to summon it. I guess it could be important as, like, out to towers type monsters, or even just, like, targeting immune monsters, so maybe it matters. but I haven't summoned it yet, so arguably that could be cut. If I were to cut it, I'd probably run a second Exiton, but one has been fine for me. I definitely would never cut Scarlight, not even just because of time, but because nuking the board is so crazy when you don't have a battle phase. So like these are your two like nuke cards. I definitely wouldn't cut one of them. And then you could cut Donner, but it really does come up just the utility and being able to clear your EMZ comes up a lot with Runick. So yeah, like if anything, I'd cut Changing, but he's such a powerful card. I would really want to be sure that I wouldn't want to cut it. But yeah, that's the list. And then with these 3 changes, this is the list I should have run. So I actually went undefeated in Swiss. I was 5-0 in Swiss. And then I think 3, if I recall correctly, 3 of those 5 wins were against people who ended up making it to top cut. And then I lost in round 1 of top cut. So like top 8, I lost. And the reason I lost was it was actually against Dragon Link. Again, one of the 3 players I beat in Swiss that made it to top 8. Yeah, the Dragon Link player was a player I beat in Swiss. And in round 1, he set a card, a single back row, and passed. In my draw phase, I activated a Runick card and pitched a Gamma for Hugin. Turned out he had a Bestial in hand, and the set card was Eradicator. So by putting that light monster in grave, I allowed his Bestial to be live, and in turn his Eradicator to be live. And then he won the game from there. Like, it didn't matter that all he set was Eradicator, that's all you need against Runick. Like, this isn't purely because I pitched Gamma. It did feel like that at the time, but eventually I would make a synchro play, and I would put a light or a dark in grave. Like, maybe by that point I could have a decent board, because I'd already made a synchro play, but honestly I don't remember anymore. This was 2 weeks ago now. But yeah, so that really hurt. And then so that was a very, very tilting way to start the top cut of this case tournament. But then game 2, I get to go first, of course, and I just brick. I draw endless non-engine. I think I draw 2 Runick spells and then 3 non-engine. What I ended up doing was summoning a Hugin, getting a Fountain, and then tribute summoning Driver just so I could activate another Runick spell, just on the hope that I could get into like more plays. And I didn't. So if I just had these cards somewhere in the list to give me better engine access, I think that would have been a different game. But yeah, that's how my tournament ended. Very, very tilting way for it to end. I do think it was very, very unlucky, but I could have mitigated it somewhat with better deck building. But yeah, so that was that. Again, undefeated in Swiss, and I do think that I could have taken the whole tournament if, like, either with that better deck building or just like a little bit less bad luck. And what an extremely unlucky match in the top cut. But overall, very impressed with the list. I do think this is one of the strongest decks of the whole format. Like, arguably the strongest, like arguably the highest ceiling deck. Because when you go first and you get to play the game, you almost always just win. And then going second, it's still crazy. Like, the only downside is the minimal non-engine slots, which, like, I thought I was mitigating with by running 9 here, but that ended up biting me. So yeah, optimally, like, you probably only have maybe 6 or 7 non-engine slots, which is like a bit of a downside. But the Runick cards are so good going second, and honestly, the Naturia cards, like Mole Cricket's crazy going second too. So yeah, might be the best deck this format in my opinion. I've rambled on long enough. Make sure you let me know what you think about the deck list, what you think the best deck is this format, and also let me know what you think about like me doing the deck profile on DB. I usually do the deck profile with like my webcam and showcasing like the actual physical deck, physical cards, like with like you would, like almost every deck profile goes when it's a person showcasing their own deck. It's almost always the physical cards, but that takes a lot more effort just to like set everything up and make it look okay. Hopefully this was still visually appealing enough, and I think it obviously, like, you get to see the whole deck at a glance, so it does have that benefit to it. Yeah, other than that, thanks for watching. Goodbye.